Episode 5, 2004. I am now the most miserable man living. If what I feel were equally distributed to the whole human family, there would not be one cheerful face on earth.
Now, on Inside the Buffalo...
Wait! Can't use that title. How about this? All right.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Down and Drought. The Bills' playoff drought turns to 2004. And oh man, there is a lot to discuss in this one. I'm Prescott Rossi. He's Thad Brown. He's Dave Yates. We've been here for the first 4 episodes, the first 4 seasons of the Bills' playoff drought. But 2004 may have the most stuff to talk about. So let's not waste any time. January 14th, the Bills, they're looking for a head coach. They've found one.
It gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce to you our next head coach, Mike Mularkey.
Just the immediate response and reaction to Malarkey being the guy to lead the Bills into a new season. Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it was.
Yeah, really, it was. It's like another, it's kind of like not really that different from what we just had, right?
Offensive guy instead of a defensive guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Young coach, not much pedigree, not much, buzz, just a guy.
Yeah, keeping that trend that they started with Greg.
He played in the NFL.
There you go. He had that going for him.
He's a tight end for the Steelers. So yeah.
The guys the Bills were linked with for this job to be their head coach in 2004 is really not all that impressive. So I guess you could argue that the Bills kind of got the best of a bad bunch. Lovie Smith, Charlie Weiss, Romeo Crennel, Jim Fossil, Jerry Gray, Dick Duran, which, as we know later, that could have saved us some time. Yeah. Funny how that worked out, but Malarkey is the guy. Meanwhile, Greg Williams goes to D.C. He becomes the highest paid defensive coordinator in the league. Moving forward, after Malarkey is named the head coach, you move to March 1st, the start of free agency, and every year there's seemingly a big move with the Bills in free agency. They cut Ruben Brown, and we talked about this in 2003. Ruben, at the end of that season in a game against the Dolphins afterward, speaking with Jeremy Nails and just telling him that he's gone. He's done.
That's it. Ain't no more. What's that? I ain't back. You ain't come back up with that stop. I ain't lying. I'm not lying. I'll tell you what we're going to do. I don't know. We'll sit down and we'll piece it together. I'm here. I'm gone too.
And there's a falling out between him and Greg Williams. Tom Donahoe says that was a reason why, part of the reason why they let go of Ruben Brown. But what was your relationships like with Ruben and the thought that after so many years of loyal work for the Bills, 8 straight Pro Bowls, he's now no longer on the team?
Ruben was a scary guy on the surface. He really, he was just intimidating in every way, shape, and form. But Ruben was, by and large, a pretty agreeable guy to deal with. He gave you some good stuff when you go to him. He could be hit or miss, but by and large, he was a good guy to talk to.
Stand-up guy, definitely willing to face the music in the locker room for the most part, and I never had any complaints with him.
Not at all.
But you're right, he was a little, he wasn't an easily approachable guy.
No.
You need to have your facts straight. You need to have good questions and have I don't want to say a legit reason, but you couldn't just roll up to him with basic stuff.
Yep.
If you're going to ask him, hey, can you talk about this? You're going to get smacked down.
Yeah.
So and he was beloved in the community. He was a guy that was a member of that Buffalo town as well as the team. So it was a tough cut to see the Bills make. And, again, this was a team that was not stacked at offensive line. Mike Williams was in the midst of becoming the bust that he is. So you weren't like, wow, they don't need him or he cost too much. It was a bit of a surprise.
And the fact that Donahoe comes out and says that the falling out he had with Greg Williams did play a role in his release from the team. Coming off the heels of Tom Donahoe calling out Western New Yorkers and saying they should be ashamed for how they treated Greg Williams, was this another move where the anger and aggression is pointed at Tom Donahoe and not anyone else?
I think this was seen more as a football decision, not as a off the field, we like you, we don't like you kind of thing. It wasn't a football decision a lot of people agreed with, but it was we have a guy who's on the back end of his career who makes a lot of money, who maybe we don't like his attitude, or not necessarily his attitude, but he was a locker room lawyer. And sometimes those guys don't fit well, especially with a new coach. So that may have very well played a part of it too.
Another big move in free agency, Antoine Winfield signs with the Minnesota Vikings. And we talked about in the last episode how there were so many strong players on defense for the Bills. And now you're losing a guy who had been there for a few years, had really grown into his role. I know he was kind of seen as a quiet guy, but the decision to not maintain that 1-2 combo with Malloy and Winfield, what were your thoughts on that?
It was a tough loss. You know, I think that was a guy the Bills wanted to keep. Now, they had Nate Clements coming up, basically to ascend to that role of being the number 1 corner. But, you know, Winfield was an excellent player, a top-shelf corner, and that was one of those where, you know, you're on pins and needles following the Bills. Is he going to sign? Is he not going to sign? And when the Bills lost out, that one hurt.
Yeah, he's a sharp guy, too. I mean, he was
quiet, but
really quiet, but very, I mean, he didn't miss a lot of things. He was good at what he did.
Went to the Pro Bowl 3 times with the Minnesota Vikings. But the Bills do bring in a player to replace him, and they bring in 5-time Pro Bowler Troy Vincent, who was 32 at the time, so it was a bit long in the tooth in terms of an NFL career. The idea, though, to bring Vincent in, was that seen as a positive move at the time?
He's a big name, good player, and he was, from the media point of view, one of the 4 or 5 favorite guys to talk to. He was very smart, and no one who covered him is surprised that he's, you know, second in charge in the NFL Players Union right now. He was a guy that was destined to be, you know, whatever he wanted to be, he was going to go right to the top.
I think as media guys, we were like, we got Lawyer Malloy and Troy Vincent in the same locker room. We are set.
Yes.
We are like golden because you got 2 of the best talkers you're ever gonna see.
So we get to the 2004 NFL Draft, and Tom Donahoe's success and failure rate in the draft leading up to 04, I think, was pretty good. The Mike Williams pick is obviously the biggest black mark on his tenure with the Buffalo Bills,
But I think most people would have made that pick.
Yeah.
And that was the point I was going to make, was at that time that was the right call. The first pick the Bills have is the 13th overall pick in that 04 draft. They draft Lee Evans, wide receiver out of Wisconsin. Was that seen also as another, you know, like that's the pick you got to make?
It was okay.
Because you had lost Peerless Price and the wide receivers had taken a step back?
It made sense. I don't think Lee Evans was going to be seen as a big-time game changer. In addition, the Bills still had Eric Moulds. Eric Moulds was still the number 1, the bell cow. So they were spending their first-round pick on a number 2 receiver. I mean, it was good, nice player. Turned out to be a very good player. But you know, again, I mean, that was just the theme of that offseason so far.
Well, and to just have now back-to-back first-round picks go to Willis McGahee and Lee Evans at 2 positions where the Bills really didn't need help. It was the offensive line. It was their quarterback, perhaps. I mean, there were a lot of things where they needed help, and they go for the 2 positions where they seemingly are at their best. Did that raise any question marks or red flags in your eyes?
Virtually everything Tom Donahoe did from like 2002 on raised question marks. But, you know, I think the Lee Evans pick, because they had just lost Peerless Price, you know, wasn't seen as anything that was out of left field. It just wasn't a spectacular, you know, wow, start buying the playoff tickets kind of pick.
Yeah, he was going to make an instant impact and be a game changer.
Was there a thought in the lead up to the draft, though, that the Bills might go back into the first round? Because this happens, and I want to know if there were any like, oh yeah, they might be interested in going back into the first round.
That was I'm pretty sure the Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger draft. So everybody talked about those 3 guys, about these are great quarterbacks. And then after that, the next group wasn't so good. So when they went back up to get another quarterback, why are we bothering with any other quarterback other than those top 3? And B, why are we spending all these picks, 2 first-round picks to do it? There were no one like that move right off the bat.
So yeah, the 13th overall pick is Lee Evans. He goes 2 picks after Ben Roethlisberger to the Pittsburgh Steelers at pick 11. And I wonder if the Bills had Ben Roethlisberger, would things be different now?
Oh, yeah, they would have gone to the playoffs.
How much different, though? I mean, based
I don't
on
think
coaches and other decisions that the Bills have made, how much of an impact do you think he would have made?
Full disclosure, I have never been a Ben Roethlisberger advocate. And I've only come around recently after he's had multiple good years to where I think he's an elite quarterback. I think if Ben Roethlisberger goes to Buffalo, the Bills do make some playoffs. There's no drought. But I don't think they ever go to the Super Bowl. And I wonder if Ben Roethlisberger is still either in Buffalo or in the league right now, because he went to a perfect cocoon of a situation in Pittsburgh where Buffalo was almost entirely the opposite in every way.
He would have been a man on an island, basically.
Yeah, he'd have been, you know, no protection, you know, decent weapons, okay defense, you know, rookie, brand new coach. I don't think Ben Roethlisberger is being discussed about Hall of Fame or champions or anything like that if he's in Buffalo.
Bill Cowher is still the head coach of the Steelers at this point, but not for very much longer. The Bills, they draft Lee Evans at 13 overall, and you think, okay, the Bills are done in the first round. But oh, wait. Tom Donahoe makes a few phone calls with the Dallas Cowboys. We have ourselves a trade. Here's the haul. The Bills' second-round pick, their fifth-round pick, and their first-round pick in 2005 to Dallas for the 22nd overall pick, where they take J.P. Lossman, quarterback, Tulane. WTH.
Yeah, pretty much.
Again, following the trend of the offseason.
Oh, yeah.
Huh?
This one, even watching him on film at Tulane, you wondered what the Bills saw.
Yeah.
For even just to spend any pick on him, let alone trading an extra first rounder and a 2 and a 5. Everyone shook their heads.
I don't know if they're trying to catch Flutie in the bottle again. I don't know.
Well, and you would have thought they would have learned their lesson from the Bledsoe trade of trading a first-round pick for a quarterback. That, like, first-round picks are worth everything. Right. Why would you cast that aside for, in Bledsoe's case, a guy on the downswing of his career, and in the case of Lossman, a guy you know nothing about because he's a quarterback from Conference USA. Right. I know that Ben Roethlisberger was in the MAC. It wasn't like he was playing in the Big East or anything at that time. But Lossman? Really?
Like I said, there was no defending that choice. There was no reason to look at J.P. Lossman and think this guy is worth basing the future of your franchise on. No one liked it. No one defended it. It made, except for the dyed-in-the-wool, blue and red Bills fans, it just made no sense in any way, shape, or form.
So we look at the 17-year span of the Bills' playoff drought, and there are moments, there are games, there are decisions where you go like, oh, if that one is different, how would the outlook of this team be in 2017? If they don't spend 3 picks on J.P. Lossman, I mean, that has to be one of the bigger what-ifs. I know they've missed on players in the draft that went to other places and were successful, but, I mean, how big of an impact did this pick make moving forward, not just from 04, but years down the road?
I don't know how much different it would have been because they would have had to still find a quarterback the next year. Now, maybe not the next year because Drew Bledsoe would go on to have a decent season. They'd be almost in the playoffs. But he was close to getting to the end of his career. If it wasn't going to be 05, it would have certainly been 06. Now it's a matter of where do the Bills pick, who's available then. You'd have to go back through and figure out what quarterbacks were there. If the Bills had found a good quarterback that was not named J.P. Lossman, sure, things would have been better. but by itself, this was just another in the litany of terrible early draft choices.
So the offseason misery, it's not finished yet in 2004. In training camp, August 24th, 2 days from the end of training camp. You think of those buddy cop movies where someone gets shot up. Oh, he was 2 days away from retirement. Well, J.P. Lossman, 2 days away from getting out of his first training camp, breaks his leg thanks to Troy Vincent. And who was at Fisher that day, that afternoon? And just the oh no, we've spent so much on this guy and now he has a broken leg.
One of the more interesting parts of Bills history that I was as close to being directly ground zero involved in. At this point in training camp, this was one of the first camps where they didn't let us shoot the 11-on-11 or 7-on-7 drills. And this was a play where JP had either run a bootleg or had scrambled, and the play was over. It was way downfield. So, most people were already heading back to the huddle. Fans in the stands weren't watching, for the most part, what had happened. So he gets downfield, and I'm watching the play in front of me because we had nothing to do but watch practice. We couldn't use our cameras. My camera's on the ground next to me. So he runs up to Troy Vincent, and Troy Vincent kind of sees him, and they, kind of play around and juke a little bit, and then Vincent pops him. And they said shoulder to shoulder. I thought I remember hands contacting. Either way, the number one reaction I had when JP goes down was thinking back to when I was a kid and I wrestled around the living room with my brother, where my mom would say, be careful, don't go crazy because someone's going to get hurt. Yeah. Well, JP goes down, and even before anybody knows he's hurt, that's the first thing I think. Oh, they horsed around, and now someone's going to get hurt. It didn't look malicious. People immediately tried to say, was Troy Vincent trying to send a message? Was he trying to say, you're a rookie, you got to earn your stripes? No. They were two guys horsing around.
Yeah. Late in camp.
And it got out of control, for an instant. And J.P. Lossman broke his leg. And I remember I see him go down, and in a millisecond, I know it's serious. I pick my camera up and start recording it. And that was the impression I had. And again, people have said that they thought Troy Vincent was trying to do something to hurt him or send a message. Incorrect. I watched the play happen. They were two guys screwing around, and they got what they deserved, more or less.
So the injury bug is not even done with the Bills in 2004. Preseason game number 3, August 28th, Lawyer Milloy breaks his arm in the preseason game against the Indianapolis Colts. So, okay, they've lost Winfield to free agency, but you think, okay, they have Lawyer Milloy. Well, now they've lost Lawyer Milloy to a broken arm. I mean, in the off seasons with this team, is there anyone where you think, not a single decision was the right one, or nothing broke their way?
Yeah, that's no pun intended. Nothing breaking away. A lot of things were breaking, just not breaking away. Yeah, it was just the domino effect just seemed to keep hitting time and time again.
So going into the regular season, just the idea and the thoughts about this team, with everything that has gone on in the offseason, and now they have this new head coach, and who knows what else could happen down the road. What were the thoughts on the precipice of the 04 season?
There weren't many expectations. I don't think it was, let's see what Malarkey can do. Let's see if, Drew Bledsoe can find something. That you were kind of expecting not much. But Malarkey was still 0-0. He was undefeated. So you didn't want to kill him right off the bat. But there wasn't really, wow, this is going to be a fun year. I think we were expecting another 6-10, nothing campaign.
You know how I do, how we do. LB's on 3. 1, 2, 3. LB.
Week 1, the Jacksonville Jaguars come to the Ralph, and we talked about the season opener in 2002 when Chad Morton returns 2 kickoffs for touchdowns. Is this one worse?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Explain.
Well, the Bills, if I remember correctly, even though it was a 3-point game at the end, they pretty much outplayed Jacksonville for most of the game. Yeah. You never got the feeling that Jacksonville was going to have a chance to win the game. So they're down 3 or 4. Was 10-6?
Yes, correct.
10-6. So and we both shot this game, right? Yep. So they're down 10-6, and they had 4th and 10 or 12 or 15, something like that, on their own 30. And you're thinking, okay, this will be the end of the game. Bills will get their win. They'll be 1-0. Well, then Byron Leftwich just heaves this ball up, and it was one of the Smiths. I think it was Sean Smith. I don't know.
Possibly,
yeah. It was one of the 8 receivers Jacksonville seemed to have named Smith over the early part of the 2000s. And he comes down with the ball for like a 40-yard catch, and you're like, come on. I mean, you didn't even then. You didn't think they were going to finish the comeback, and now the end of the game is on your side of the field.
Yeah.
So, do you? I mean, I remember it, but
it was like basically 20, 25 yards out, something like that.
I think it was 15. Was it? Yeah, but it was the
basically
last. It was
4th and goal. 4th and goal.
4th and goal.
But not only that, it was 2 seconds to go.
Yeah.
So it was the end. It was the play.
Yep. Jump ball at the back of the end zone, and it wasn't the corner. It was like basically a short-range Hail Mary.
Yeah.
And it came down with it. It was right. I mean, it was one of those they'd be looking. I mean, they called it right away. I don't think they ever
reviewed it. Yeah. It was not a gimme like he's got 2 feet in and a touchdown.
2 feet in and possession.
Ernest Wilford.
That's right.
Yeah. The most memorable name from the draft.
I can still remember the ball. So you see Leftwich drop back and he throws, and even as the ball is in the air, I can remember myself at this point with the ball on my camera lens thinking, okay, the Bills are still going to win.
Yeah.
Even here.
Yeah.
How is it? Who's going to deflect it? And then he catches it, and you're like.
And the trajectory of it was such that you're thinking it's too deep.
No
one's getting this ball.
Right.
And then he comes down with it. And you're
Ernest
just
Wilford.
Like
the only play he would ever need in his entire NFL career.
And Jacksonville was no good. I mean, that was not only crushing from the point of view of how it happened in the game, but to lose the home opener to Jacksonville.
Yeah.
I mean, right off the bat,
So the bad feelings, they're not going anywhere at the start of this 04 season. Week 2, Bledsoe sacked 7 times. They lose in Oakland 13-10. So back-to-back 13-10 losses to open the season. They hit their bye week in week 3, which you don't really see often. I'm not even sure if teams have week 3 byes anymore, but they come out of it. Bledsoe sacked 6 times. So 13 sacks in back-to-back games. The Bills give up 21 straight points. They lose to the Patriots 31-17. Week 5, Malarkey chews out the Bills' offense on the sideline. Bills scored 2 touchdowns in the 4th quarter, but the Jets kick a go-ahead field goal with a minute to go. They lose 16-14. After the game, Ralph says there's no taking a moral victory in this one. He even called the Bills' offense boring. So they're 0-4 at this point. Literally everything has gone wrong for the Bills in this offseason. And you have the owner calling out the offense of the new head coach. I can't imagine. Are we sharpening the swords for another coach firing in 1 year?
I'll speak for me. I don't remember. You can have your take on it, but because of the way the end of that season went, I didn't remember until I researched that they were 0-4. I mean, I knew they didn't start out well, but 0-4 and that, it's almost like the first 7 games of 2004 are like lost in your memory because of everything that went right and then disastrously wrong at the end. So, and I don't remember any of that. I will say that when it came to Ralph at that point, he was in the locker room fairly often, but often enough to where when you were covering the team and you wanted to do interviews, you had to be like always keep one eye on where Ralph was. Is he going to talk? Is he going to say anything? Because you could not missed that.
Right, and which is, you look at where he was at that point, it's like
in his life,
how much
he turns 86 in October of 04.
How much weight are we really putting in what this guy says?
But it didn't matter.
You had to have it though, because if you missed it, you were missing what everybody else was going to have.
Everything and anything else that you got from the players, unless Drew Bledsoe said, "I hate Buffalo and I hope it burns," it didn't matter compared to what Ralph said.
Right.
In terms of the dynamic of seeing Ralph in the locker room after a game, was there kind of like, Scott Birch told the Bills PR guy, did he say, okay, Ralph's going to talk, or did you just kind of?
You basically hung around. Like literally, I remember, I don't know what stadium it was, but being in the tunnel afterwards, after we'd gone through the locker room and Ralph was there, and you just kind of mill around, and you're almost like looking around like, I don't notice Ralph is there. And you're looking, and then you're just pretending and then all of a sudden it's like a newspaper guy that knows him will start talking to him conversationally. And then all of a sudden, you see the notebook open, and it's an interview. Boom! It was just the swarm.
Yeah.
And you just literally kind of like, oh no, pretend we're not here.
It got to the point where he talked. I think 0304. He talked so much that anyone started asking him, Ralph, can we get a comment? And we'd get turned down sometimes. But either way, that was priority A1 in the locker room, was whatever Ralph Wilson had to say.
So week 6, the Bills are 0-4 at this point going into this game, but they have Willis McGahee now healthy. Was there a lot of clamor at this point? All right, let's get McGahee some starts, or let's at least see more from him to maybe see if this first-round pick is worth, obviously, that huge pick?
You had to, because of what they had invested in the year before. I mean, they basically scrapped 1 year of a first-round pick to get Willis McGahee. Nothing else was working. They were 0-4. Right. So of course, it's like the backup quarterback syndrome. When the starter's not doing well, the backup quarterback's the greatest player in the history of football. Kind of worked that way with Willis McGahee. People wanted to see, what he could do. And
Travis Henry has an injured foot at this time, so McGahee gets the first start of his NFL career. And hey, things go well for the Buffalo Bills. 111 yards. The Bills win 20-13 over Miami. The rivalry game. There's so much talk about the Bills-Dolphins rivalry over the years. So okay, first take, I guess, to Willis McGahee coming in as a starter and having a big impact.
I think you saw that he could be something special, and maybe it was, maybe this was a spark this team needs. Maybe there is something good to come out of this season in this team.
Week 7, the Bills go to Baltimore. Deion Sanders. It's amazing how the Bills seem to be at the wrong place at the wrong time when guys have these remarkable games. You talk about Ernest Wilford. Well, the other end of the spectrum, Deion Sanders, Hall of Famer, has 2 picks. The final pick 6 of his career as the Ravens go on to win 20-6 over the Bills. And you have to be thinking, really? Deion Sanders? Which one of you guys was in Baltimore
at the wrong end of the field? Wrong end of the field. I think on the other side of I think he took it back on the other side.
He was kind of down the middle, so it didn't really matter.
It didn't work too well. But that's how you start looking at these things. Like, where was I on the field? I didn't get the angle on that one.
Is that fun for you to think about the fact, though, that you were at a game where Ray Lewis did, the walk out on the locker room dance? That was one of the most notorious and infamous intros in the NFL for a long time, and you saw the last Deion Sanders pick 6 on the field. I mean, that's got to be a nice little,
I didn't realize that I did. I didn't realize that I was there, that was his last one, but that is cool. And
he had other interceptions after this game, but the last pick 6 of his career.
But the Ray Lewis thing, that's one of those iconic moments from the league that to be able to see that and it's pretty special.
Week 8, Terrence McGee has a kickoff return for a touchdown. McGahee has 2 touchdowns as the Bills trounced the Arizona Cardinals 38-14. Week 9, McGahee 132 yards and a touchdown. The Bills never trail as they beat the Jets, who were 6-1 at that point. They win 22-17. Week 10, this is going to be fun for me and Dave. I think it'll be fun for you too. The New England Patriots host the Buffalo Bills, the first home game for the Pats since the Boston Red Sox had won the World Series in 2004. And there was no way the Patriots are losing this game with all of the celebration.
I think I did go to that
You did
game.
that game.
How would you have not been there? How did you not draw the straw for that?
One thing I did do from that game, if I remember correctly, it was Curt Schilling, right?
Yeah.
So the Red Sox win the championship. They all come on the field. I mean, these guys were the rock stars.
2 Red Sox fans sitting here at this desk, and the one that's not is the one there.
I'm a Brewers
I don't know
fan.
what happened.
I was probably scheduled to do that, whatever. It wasn't a flight, so you had to pick flights. That's your own fault, David. You should have known the Red Sox were going to rally from 3-0 down.
You know what it was? I'd pick based on locations. What city do I want to go to that I haven't been to? And I've been to New England.
We all go to Foxborough,
We go to New England every year.
everybody's on the field from the Red Sox, and I mean everybody. Papi, Manny, or Curt Schilling. So Curt Schilling's on the sideline, and at that point, I do feel a little bit bad that Dave's not there. They had the World Series trophy out. I mean, it was just a giant party. And I got Curt Schilling to say hello to Dave on camera. It wasn't the internet Twitter era where I could send it right back. But like on Monday or Tuesday, when I got back, I said, Dave, check this out. Look at this.
Hey, Curt. Hey, hi, Dave. Hey, hi, who? Hey, Dave, what's up? Thanks a lot, man. Thank you.
So we did get that for Dave. That was the only record.
It's amazing looking at this video back of just seeing all these players from the 04 Red Sox, and everybody looks, of course, younger than it was 13 years ago. But the Curt Schilling one, that one really hasn't aged well, knowing what we know now about Curt Schilling. Like, the celebration and the ovation he gets, because he walks out on crutches, the whole thing with the ankle game and all that. Yeah, the catch-up sock and all that stuff. Don't yell at me, Curt. Sorry. Just to see that now, you're just kind of go, oh, man, that did not age well. But the Red Sox have that World Series, their first World Series win since 1918. Excuse me. The Patriots win 29-6. Week 11, Bledsoe throws 3 touchdown passes to Mark Campbell. Clemens has a punt return for a touchdown. The Bills win against St. Louis 37-17 to go to 4-6. I know they're 10 games into the season, but the offense is scoring points. The special teams has been terrific. Was there an idea at this thought that I know they have 6 losses, but if the Bills catch lightning in a bottle, they can really make some noise the second half of the season?
I think it wasn't that week, maybe the week after.
Yeah.
Because the end of the season, who did they play after the Rams?
Miami.
So, all right, they beat the Dolphins.
They sure do.
Yes, they do. The Dolphins were what, like 9-7 that year? I think we'd have to look it up.
Yeah. No, the Dolphins were bad. No, 4-12.
Were they 4-12?
4-12. Because Ricky Williams had retired before the start of the season.
That's right.
And they had no alternative, and their offense totally fell apart.
It was about then when the Bills got to 5-6, and you started looking at the end of the schedule, and they were playing the NFC West that year, and that was back in the day when the NFC West was terrible year in and year out. And they still had like the Niners and the Rams, and
they had a game with the Browns and the Bengals left.
Right. So they had trash on the schedule. And you're seeing things click. You could see what was going to happen. Wait a minute. The Bills are probably going to win this game. They're probably going to win this game. They can pull out this one game against a team that's like 6-7. They might run the table here. You could see it coming. And you knew where it was going to end up. They were going to have to, play Pittsburgh in what was stunningly going to be an important game at the end of the year.
I'd say Thad is one of the great scenario player outers.
It's amazing. The mental hoops he can go through.
It's scary. When we sit towards the end of the year and start coming up with, okay, the playoff implications of this game, I'm like, how do you do that? It's just like, he's like Rain Man.
I watched him walking around. Yeah.
So week 12, the Bills go to Seattle. You talk about the NFC West. They face the Seahawks. Willis McGahee runs for 4 touchdowns in Seattle. Well, Dave, you weren't in New England because you've been there before, but I imagine you went.
No, that was my trip. Oh! One of my favorite trips of all time.
Seattle's an amazing city.
I'm leaving now.
Yeah. This was before
what was I thinking?
Well, I think I was able to finagle that one. Seattle was.
You get one good. When you're the low man, you get one good trip out of the year, and you get the other ones.
This was pre-Seattle being the 12th man, but the stadium was new, and no one really talked about it because it's Seattle, and the Seahawks weren't good.
They were on their way up, though. They had Alexander and Hasselbeck.
They were getting there. What a great stadium! What a great experience! The Bills torched them. Lee Evans scored a touchdown late in the first half, right at me. One of those great highlights. But one of my favorite play calls of all time that I shot on the field was the 4th and 1 fake, where the Bills had it about the Seattle 30 and 4th and 1, less than 1, whatever. And Drew Bledsoe faked a quarterback sneak and did it fantastic. He took the snap and kind of did this, and then he comes back out and flings the ball to McGahee, who runs for a 30-yard touchdown, again, right at my feet. And that was one of those games where, as a photographer, it was like manna from heaven, because every big play was the guys were tying my shoes when they were gotten up from scoring a touchdown. So the Bills win 38-5. It's a great stadium. It's fun. I have all these great highlights right at my feet. Even better, I went out to one of the best dinners ever. I mean, there's a place I sat by myself. I had shrimp cocktail. There was a Broncos-Seahawks game, Broncos and Raiders on a night in Denver. It was snowing. One of the best trips
The memory
I ever
burns
had.
from 13 years ago.
Oh, yeah. So
the Bills win in week 12.
The only negative from that is that I flew back coach in a middle seat with 2 300-pound guys the whole way. Oh, it was awful.
Ooh, yeah, and you're not getting the first class treatment or the players get. You were flying coach.
You're 35. Too,
you're jumping to different airports all over the country. That's a haul. I've done that one. But the Bills snap a 6-game losing streak on the road with that win over the Seahawks. Week 13, it's Dolphins week once again. And We talked about in 2002 the game against the Vikings on the road being one of the more fun games of the Bills' playoff drought. This one, I think, deserves to belong in that conversation. 42-32, the Bills win. Bledsoe has 4 touchdowns. Lee Evans has a 69-yard touchdown catch in that one. Nice, Lee Evans. Pat Williams has a pick 6. A.J. Feely picked off 5 times to be in Miami. And week 13, it's the start of December, and the Bills and Dolphins are trading blows like it's Marino Kelly all over again. How much fun would that have been to A, watch, and B, to be there on the field?
That was you.
Yeah, that was me. That was absolutely just everything you could hope for from a.
And the Bills are winning games too, and they're turning their season around.
Things are looking good again, and they're like you said earlier, they're firing on all cylinders at this point. They're really starting to look like a team that can do something. So not only are they winning games, but they're winning in exciting fashion too. So it's helping a lot.
At this point, as they've worked their way back to 500, they are 6-6 after an 0-4 start. I mean, what is the media coverage like at this time?
I think the expectation was the Bills should win both these games, but we were waiting to see the Bills go Bills and just trip up on one of those 2 games. We wanted to see, okay, this is laid out for them. Now go do it. Go make it happen. Even the Pittsburgh game, I think at that point, you can kind of see the wheels turning with, they might not need that game for anything.
Yep.
You know, so look, it's here on a red carpet. Go finish.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, you know, the way it started and the way everything had gone, to even be talking like this was just like, wow, this is kind of fun again. Because after covering, you know what it's like to cover. You get to that point in the season where you're like, okay, we got to do another one of these. And now all of a sudden you're like, oh, great, we got another one coming up.
Yeah, late December tends to get a little loose, you know, because the season's over, you have a bit more fun. But then in Week 14, the Cleveland Browns come to the Ralph, and the Bills put on one of the all-time best defensive performances in team history. They hold the Browns to 26 total yards. The drive charts, the stats, everything about this game, it's such an overwhelming Bills victory. You have to think, oh man, maybe we should start printing those playoff tickets.
I remember that game for thinking Cleveland did not want to be there. That was one of the.
It was snow. It was cold.
It was not that they're not used to that, or they should be, but still, it was just like it was. I don't think I can ever remember a game where the opposing team was just like, you know what, whatever. I really just don't feel like playing today.
Week 15, the Bills go to Cincinnati, and Dave, you mentioned this before we started. Just talk about the cold.
It was
no colder than that.
Well, you know, even more than that. Not only was it going to Cincinnati with a big game, but it was spikes going back. I remember that being, and I don't think I really grasped how much Cincinnati loved that guy until we went back there, and it was really like kind of to see it from the other side, where you're used to the former Bills coming back, to see him going to a visiting stadium like that and have him like that was a big deal leading up to that week. But it was cold. It was beautiful and sunny, and it was absolutely frigid. It was so bitter, and I used to go to the bench during timeouts and warm my hands up on the jet blowers on the benches over there, and I had a pair of rubber, like insulated gloves, and I'm warming my hands up, and the assistant coach says, "Dude, I think your gloves are melting." And I look down, and sure enough, the rubber on the inside is bubbling from the jet burn.
Oh my God!
So he tossed me a pair of the NFL logo receiver gloves. He goes, "Here, try these instead." So I still have them. So it's like, and they work pretty well. But yeah.
I overlooked one game that the Bills have in this run to the end of the season because the team they played was so putrid. And that would be the San Francisco 49ers, who the Bills play in Week 16. The 49ers end that season 2-14. They get the number 1 overall pick in that year. They take Alex Smith, not Aaron Rodgers. But in San Francisco, Bills 49ers, the Bills have won 5 straight games. They're now over 500, 2 games over 500 going into this one. You know, the carpet's laid out for them, and here they are delivering once again. I mean, is there any team in the NFL that wants to play them at this point?
That was a foregone conclusion game. I remember turning that game on thinking we're maybe the first time in 4 years or 5 years of covering the Bills are going to win this game. It's just a matter of how and by how much.
Yeah.
Did you cover that one? Did you go out there or no? I did not. It was a Christmas week game, so we may not have gone. The Bills didn't have anything to play for that particular week. And again, I remember just flipping it on at home, and I didn't, for whatever reason, I didn't even work that day. Maybe it was
the day after Christmas. It was the 26th.
Yeah, so that might be it. But I just remember, watching that game thinking this is going to be a foregone conclusion. There's no doubt the Bills are winning this game.
Coming off, that great performance against Cleveland, the Bills defense forces 4 turnovers. The Bills offense has 441 total yards as they go on to win 41-17, a 6-game winning streak for the Buffalo Bills. And now it sets up the game we all know, Week 17, 2004, against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That game, I remember thinking, it's not a matter. The Bills were going to win because Pittsburgh wasn't going to play. You know, I think it was really obvious that Roethlisberger wasn't going to play, and most starters were only going to go a little bit.
Pittsburgh 14-1 going.
Yeah, they did not need the game. There was no reason to play. So the Bills needed help. They needed the Jets to lose, and I think either Denver or Indianapolis or something like that.
Yeah.
Jets would have won. It was one or the other. Regardless, the point was
St. Louis over the Jets, Indy over Denver.
So
either one of those.
It was just a matter of if that would happen. You know, and I remember thinking, all right, the game's been kind of a foregone. We're going to be more interested in watching the Jets-Rams score as the day went along. And then it did not play out that way.
No. It was unbelievable because you really, as much as you said turning on the Niners game, you were like, okay, same thing. Because I remember going in that game thinking, Steelers aren't going to put anybody out there. Yeah. This is nothing for them. This should be. It's a preseason game basically for them. You know, just give them. You know, get warm a little bit if you want to, but other than that, you know, pack it in and go home and call it a day.
Defining moments that define you as a player, define your career. Right now, this is our defining moment. Let no one stand in the way of that. Right now, they're in the way of our destiny. Like I say each and every week, linebackers set the tone, linebackers set the tempo. Ain't nothing changed but the location. LB's on 3. 1, 2, 3, LB!
The start of the game goes kind of back and forth. Nate Clements fumbles a punt, but then forces a fumble that gets recovered and leads to a Willis McGahee touchdown. Bills were up 7-3. Bledsoe throws an interception that leads to a field goal. It was 16-10 at halftime. But then Nate Clements redeems himself for the fumble in the first half with the pick six to put the Bills up 17-16. And at that point, the thought is, okay, it's done.
He ran that back right in front of me. And I was in the right spot at the right time in a big game, probably the biggest game I'd ever covered. And I was all over that play. I could have counted the number of tagliaboos as the ball spun by. And he catches it, runs by me, and does this. And now keep in mind, I grew up a Jets fan. So the Bills winning is directly the opposite of what my childhood self wants. So Clements comes back, and I'm all over this, and kind of the hoopla dies down as it goes to commercial. I run to the other side of the field, jacked up. I'm like, Dave, I was all over that. I don't care if the Jets don't make the playoffs. I had that play, I thought at that point the Bills had the game because they, second half they had the lead, they had the momentum. The Steelers didn't care. I thought it was over at that point.
And you think about that momentum, and it continues into that second half. After that pick six early in the third quarter, the Bills then go on a 12-play, 86-yard drive, doing basically whatever they want against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Here comes Ryan Lindell to kick a field goal. It goes wide right. And being in the stadium that afternoon, I mean, how quickly did the air just get totally sucked right out of the balloon?
It wasn't that play. It was the next play, right? Yeah. Willie Parker goes with 67 yards, 70 yards, whatever it was. Like the missed field goal was kind of, that's not good, but the Bills were still up, and it was still the Steelers' third stringers. And then Willie Parker rips off that run, and now it was like DEFCON 5. What's going to happen? So that's when I really started to think this might be a problem. And then it was the Bledsoe fumble. For whatever reason, I think I was like changing a battery or something. I was not on the field for the Bledsoe touchdown, fumble into a touchdown. If you had the video of it, do you remember what you're thinking as that play?
Again, it was one of those, turnover. Are you kidding me? Is this really happening? I mean, you're just, they had everything that they could have asked for, and they're literally letting it slip away.
Not slip away. They're giving it away.
And that's the thing is, we've talked about the start of the season where nothing went right. In the offseason, even the first 4 games of the regular season, nothing goes well for the Buffalo Bills. But they have some players. They've won 6 straight games going into this one, and it turns so quickly. I mean, in your life, can you recall just seeing anything just turn so like an avalanche or something where you're trying to hold things back and just the onslaught just keeps coming of fumbles, bad plays, big runs by the Steelers? I mean, in your life, have you seen anything like that?
We cover the Bills.
But even still, in terms of the Bills, I've been doing this for 5 years. I've never seen anything like that.
It wasn't in that spot. It had never happened before. I'm sure if we look through Bills history, we could find games. I know that there's a Bills Sunday night game against the Patriots where Lewis McKelvin fumbled. That was one of those games. But in that big spot, it never happened before, and it never happened since. And the one thing I'll always remember from that game, after the game, again, the Bills needed to win, but the Jets also had to lose. As it turned out, the Jets went to overtime with the Rams and ended up losing in overtime. And their game ended 10, 15 minutes after the Bills game ended. So there was a thought always that, well, the Jets knew the Bills had lost and that had gotten them in the playoffs. They needed the game. They kind of quit on their own game and didn't really try to win in overtime. Who knows if that's true? The thing that I always remember is I talked to Paul Peck, who was at WIVB in Buffalo at the time, and we were talking about the game. And he pointed out that if the Bills had won, it would have been two parties at Ralph Wilson. It would have been the party of the Bills winning that game, and then because the Jets had gone to overtime and played so much later, they would have put that game on the Jumbotron, and the fans would have all watched it. And when the Rams won, it would have been another celebration in the stadium. And the fact that the Bills missed out on that because they couldn't beat a third-string team is something I will never forget. Because what would that memory have been like for us in the media, for Western New York, for all the 80,000 people who were in that stadium that day, to have one jubilant celebration for the Bills winning, and then another one 15 minutes later, enough to where you could have come down and come back up to celebrate the Bills finally after 4 years, making it back to the playoffs.
Dave, you covered the Bills when they made it to the postseason.
Yep.
I mean, obviously, the circumstances would be different. The Bills make the playoffs now. It is a massive party. But what were the celebrations like when the Bills made the playoffs, even in the late 90s post-Super Bowl run?
I think it was an expectation then. They're really, I mean, you'd have your down years, but yeah, you're the Bills. You're going to be in the playoffs, if not this year, next year. It's just a matter of not if, but when. And now it's just.
Have you ever covered, you probably haven't, a game where Bills fans were just truly excited and fired up to win? I mean, other than maybe a Week 3 game against New England. A really legitimate post-Thanksgiving. You probably never covered one because all the playoff games you covered, they were expected to be there.
Yeah, I can't think of one.
Exactly. I mean, you got to go back to probably maybe the Oilers comeback game.
Yep.
To the last time you had a game where Bills fans were truly jacked up to win a game.
So James Harrison returns a fumble for a touchdown to put the Steelers up 26-17 early in the fourth quarter. And then the Steelers go on a 14-play, 46-yard drive that eats up nearly 9 minutes of clock. What is that slow death like in the stadium?
You just said it.
But we were both thinking the same. We talked about it after. Yeah.
You're just like, really?
Yeah.
Again? Seriously?
You could just see the throats tightening and every, just slow death is the only way to play.
Yeah,
you felt it on the field because you're watching the clock tick down. You're watching the Steelers convert 3rd and 2 and 3rd and 3 over and over and over. Not 1st and 10. No. Not 15 yards.
Just grinding it
exactly.
out. Grinding it out.
And again, third stringers. And you're like, hello?
Yeah.
Who's the team that needs this game right now?
Dave, you're a Red Sox fan. 03 was a part of my life. I remember that loss in the ALCS in Game 7. Would you put this Week 17 game, I know it's a regular season game, but is that almost kind of seen in the same length as Game 6 of the 86 World Series with Buckner and the ball going through his legs?
Oh, no.
That's worse.
Oh, yeah. 86 was worse. 86 was...
A Red Sox Bills fan, you have a thick encyclopedia of misery. I would imagine you would be able to judge adequately where they...
86 was devastating. That was...
Is this worse than 03? Because the Red Sox hadn't been in the World Series in so long, and it was the Yankees.
I
think it's hard to put, I don't want to speak for you on comparisons, but I think it's hard to put the Bills in that level because the fact that they even had a chance was like, woo, where did this come from?
Yeah.
And even if they made the playoffs, no one was thinking, oh, this team's going to make a run to the Super Bowl. It was just, wow, playoffs, this would be great. It'd be a complete happy to be there kind of thing.
But you did have a lead slip through your fingers. And, so the Bills lose 29-24 in Week 17 to the Steelers, and they win that game. We're not doing this episode right now.
We're not even doing this. That's right.
So just the immediate thoughts and in the wake of that game, in the wake of that season that started so poorly, you had such an incredible run to end the season, but then as bitter a pill as you can imagine to swallow in Week 17. I guess just final thoughts on a season that was as wild a roller coaster as you can imagine for a team that didn't make the playoffs.
I think for the most part, we came out of that season feeling pretty positive.
Very positive.
Yeah, because a new coach, things had started slow, but then it clicked. And it wasn't the Bills winning games by field goals and having...
Yeah, they're putting up 35 a game.
I mean, they were crushing teams.
Yeah.
And some of them were 2-14, but you look through, there's a couple of, I think the Dolphins, or maybe not the Dolphins, the Seahawks were 9-7. There were a couple...
Bengals went 8-8.
Exactly. Yeah. There were a couple decent teams that they didn't just beat, they hammered. So, yeah, obviously they went all Bills in Week 17, but I think you felt like Malarkey and Bledsoe could be something that would build on in the next season.
What about JP, though?
Not a factor.
Not a factor. It wasn't even
he didn't play. He barely played.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Buffalo Bills go 9-7 in 2004. They missed the postseason. It's why we're here talking about them. But you mentioned that optimism and coming with a new head coach in Mike Malarkey. What was kind of the comparisons that you guys made or felt with Malarkey in regards to coming immediately after Greg Williams, who was, a defensive guy with thin skin, who was combative, and now you have Malarkey, who seems to be much more even-keeled compared to Greg?
We jokingly talked about him, he played in the NFL. But I think that you almost were like, okay, he gets it a little more than Greg did. Greg was just a coach. Mike was a guy, he understood what was going on for the players and that, and I think I think you had a little bit more respect for him there than you did for Greg Williams, because he didn't talk a big game like that. He wasn't talking about what he was going to do better than the last guy did. He was just he talked a better game than Greg Williams did.
And that better game was less is more.
Yeah,
exactly. He wasn't Bill Belichick,
Oh, no.
but he wasn't going to be loquacious and talk about all, give you these great sound bites.
He's never said loquacious.
Yeah, I was going to say loquacious, huh?
I do look at the dictionary.
Right. So that would be the end of 2004. So the Bills have now gone 5 seasons without making the playoffs. But there's that hope, and it's a fickle thing. It'll drive you absolutely crazy. But with 6 wins in the last 7 games going into the postseason, maybe the Bills can have their hopes turn around in 2005. And like the Red Sox, 03 happened. They win the World Series in 2004. Could the Buffalo Bills make the postseason in 2005? For that, we turn to the next episode of Down and Drought.